What I'm going to do today is talk about 7-Eleven. I'm going to give you guys a really deep dive into what's happening with the customer from 7-Eleven's point of view. As you guys know, 7-Eleven is a 100-year-old company. We've got 65,000 stores worldwide and 10,000 United States. And so our customer obsession goes very deep. So I'm going to talk about customer trends today. And then I'll talk about specific tactics from a merchandising perspective you can implement inside of your micro markets today to grow sales and profits. So that'll be what we're going to cover. But a little bit about me. I've been with the company for 9 years. I've done a lot of different roles for 7-Eleven. I actually started out as a franchisee, so very much appreciate the small business owners that are sitting here today. I can certainly empathize. So I started as a franchisee, moved into operations, category management, from all kinds of levels within the organization. Now I'm the business development manager for the alternative retail team. 7-Eleven believes in 7 core leadership principles, and we try to start every meeting starting with these 7-Eleven principles. And this first one is to be customer obsessed. And we'll start there. We'll dive into the customers today. So it's really important for us to really understand the customers, not from just who's buying the products inside of our stores, but who are the people that we're working with, who are the vendors that we're working with, who are the manufacturers that we're working with, and trying to deliver a great experience for all of those key stakeholders. So that you can see here, 7-Eleven's leadership culture is to start with the customer. Here's a look at what you'll learn today. We'll talk about the concept of retailer initiative. That's really in our blood at 7-Eleven. We'll talk about the changing needs of the customer, how to turn insights into actions, and a couple other things to maximize your sales and profits. In terms of our merchandising philosophy, the first thing to do is to be customer obsessed and to grow using this concept of retailer initiative, which I'll cover here in just a moment, and to tailor the assortment delivered to the customer. Now, all these things you might be thinking to yourself, hey, this sounds about right, sounds familiar, we kind of do the same thing. I'm going to talk about how we really amplify that and illustrate that here at 7-Eleven. And then, of course, using item by item management to grow sales. From a strategy perspective, we start with the customer. We have a lens about micro-market execution, and then we have a whole operations team to support execution in store, where our franchisees actually get dedicated support from operators, business development, and merchandising to make this thing happen. This is a full circle merchandising philosophy that we believe in. It's continuously improving and evolving as we go. So I wanted to show you guys a picture. The guy that you see on it looks like my left, his name is Uncle Joe. This is actually the very first 7-Eleven that we started. It started actually in Dallas, Texas. If you can imagine, 7-Eleven started here and started as an ice house. The only thing that we sold was ice back in 1927. This is Uncle Joe. And so customers came to Uncle Joe and they said, hey, I'm having a hard time getting to the store after work, and there's nothing really open after late at night. Can you start selling bread and eggs? So Uncle Joe said, hey, you know what, that's a good idea. Let me see if I can get approval for that. He went to his boss and said, hey, can we sell other things other than ice? Can we sell bread and eggs? Boss said, sure. And so Uncle Joe brought in bread and eggs into this store that you can see here. And that was the beginning of 7-Eleven. We were founded on the needs of our customers and giving unrestricted access to satisfy those needs. So really cool there, back in 1927. That is really what the heart of in terms of retailer initiative. Uncle Johnny's willingness to listen to the customer was critical. We know that everything that you heard this week is about how the customer is changing, and so it's all up to us to really evolve and change as companies and business people to really satisfy the customer needs. And that was really the foundation of what we call retailer initiative. And that's simply to have what the customers want, when they want it, and as much as they want. That concept turned into what 7-Eleven is today, into a $10,000 United States or 10,000 store United States operation. The basic principles of retailer initiative are simply this, and you can see what those are here. Really, it's really about being innovative, introducing high potential products that are different inside of market. So I know, speaking with a bunch of operators throughout the country, certainly here and through some of my work, one of the challenges that people are facing is simply getting new items and pipeline into their markets. And so 7-Eleven provides a distinct difference into executing that initiative. So let's talk about the customer a little bit. We all know that these are what's happening inside of the customers. They're connected, they're more demanding and discerning, they're on the go and they're time starved, they're eating differently, they're diverse and they're urban. And that's why our channel is changing. It's changing from a traditional vending to a micro market concept. And now clients are actually looking for us to plus up our micro market concepts. They're looking for more sleek, modern, contemporary solutions inside their break rooms. So that changes things. Let's talk about how we view how the customer is changing. And so there's a lot of change happening in retail. As you guys know, some of the brands that you see on the left, from Sears to Target to Kohl's to Best Buy, those companies are very much struggling. The companies that are winning have invested heavily in technology. Walmart and Amazon, you can see the valuation of Uber and what that meant for the taxi industry. And on top of that, competition is reacting and expanding capabilities, and that's one of the cool things about 7-Eleven. And so the companies that are winning are investing into loyalty programs, and they're investing into digital. And so if you can imagine Domino's, who's been around for several years, think of themselves as not just a pizza company, but actually a technology company. It's a fundamental change of where they were several years ago. Starbucks drives tremendous sales growth through their loyalty app. Panera Bread doing the same thing. 7-Eleven is moving in that direction as well. So we know customers are connected 24/7. Let's dig into how they're more demanding and discerning. If you can believe, brick and mortar trips are actually down year to date, but online trips inside of stores are up 18%. And that's a big change. And you can see that that's where the puck is going. And for micro market and vending operators sitting in this room today, even the way that people shop inside of break rooms is changing as well. And what used to be pretty convenient for customers to just go to the local break room and buy something out of the micro market and vending machine, there's companies that do that. And they have very specific use-based occasions to satisfy those needs. Who's heard of GoPuff, Peapod, and companies like that? And so those are companies that can execute immediate consumption through mobile technology. And so how people get their Coke, their Frito-Lay product, or maybe a sandwich is changing as well. And so we recognize that 41% of the total retail growth is coming from e-commerce and online retail. And so the puck is changing, gentlemen. We have to figure out how we change amongst that rapid pace. We know that customers are on the go and time starved. I want to point the direction to the graph that you see on the left here. And so this is a graph that shows frequency based on visits and weekday. And you can see that cafeteria, kiosk, and vending have a distinct difference in use occasion. But you can see that there's a big opportunity to accelerate that and grow number of trips inside of those venues. And so as you think to yourself, well, how do I do that? It's about maximizing the assortment inside of those break rooms in your vending machine or micro market to satisfy those needs. It's not just enough to sell sandwiches and salads, but how do we do breakfast? How do we do lunch? How do we do when I need to go home from work? How do we do, my wife calls me and says, can you pick up something for dinner? Those are the things that 7-Eleven is working on right now to solve those occasions. You can see here that on the go and time starved changes as well, and so folks that are really looking to eat differently, eat healthier is on the rise. And there's kind of a blend of people saying I want to eat healthy versus what they actually buy. We recognize that as well. Some of our tried and true top sellers are still, some of the unhealthier products. I'm sure you guys see the same thing inside of your vending machines and micro markets, but certainly on the rise on healthy and better for you product. We know that customers are eating differently. And so digital food order growth is accelerating. There's tremendous companies out here that are at the trade show that are doing this. 7-Eleven is jumping on as well. So how do we deliver food to the break room using technology? And so just to illustrate that, 27% of customers would pay more for a faster delivery. So how do you get even faster than going to the vending machine or the micro market? How do you do that faster? And there's a lot of companies that are in this space right now using delivery to execute this. And so continued on eating differently. Customers are demanding more value, assortment, innovation, and quality and experience. They're looking for healthier options. Folks are prioritizing their health over eating specific food inside these machines. And they're looking for a stress-free experience. They're looking for consistent in-stock, mobile, and frictionless. So we all know that things are changing around the environment as well. Diversity and urbanization is key. And so we're seeing this as well in terms of our segmentation. I'll share with you 7-Eleven segmentation strategy here in just a moment. But we know customers are looking for different cuisines. And so there's a lot of flavor profiles, many of which are on this showroom floor, are resonating. And it's about capturing what those flavor profiles when they're hot to ensure that we're driving incremental sales. And so emerging food flavors are very important to customers that are millennial, Gen Z. They go out of their way to find these flavors. And you can see a couple of these on the screen that are really resonating now from 7-Eleven's perspective. And so 7-Eleven has basically 4 key segmentation concepts for their customers. I'll share with you those now. The first is mainstream, the second is better for you, the third is multicultural, and the fourth is boost. Mainstream is basically your tried and true micro market or vending operation. Better for you is maybe in a healthier, higher income, more affluent office space. Those are folks that are looking very closely at clean labels, what's the ingredient panel. We have options for those folks. Multicultural are folks that are just kind of shared with you, looking for flavors, brand extensions, folks that are looking for something different, maybe more value-centric. And then boost, think about the spaces that are not 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Think about the spaces that are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What does that assortment look like that's different than what a traditional micro market would look like? I want you guys to know that 7-Eleven has different assortment for each of these segmentations. And within that, we're able to get very close to the customer because we understand each of these segments. And this one goes without saying, it's pretty straightforward. There's a lot of things going on with frictionless checkout, amplified loyalty, artificial intelligence. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of players that are coming into the vending space for this opportunity. And so think about how we do this a little bit better going into the future. That brings us back to our merchandising philosophy about being customer obsessed. That's the way we're really digging into customers at 7-Eleven, is really truly trying to understand what their needs are, how their behaviors are changing, and what they're doing with their time and their money, so we can develop a really robust action plan for them. And so with all that said, there was a lot of information on the customer. I want to talk about how we actually change those insights into action, and how we move that action into bringing tactics into life inside of these micro markets. So that was a lot of insights that we heard, and here's how we turn that insight into action. And I'll tell you why this is fundamentally different than what traditionally might happen when we're talking to suppliers. Typically, when we talk to a supplier, it's really about understanding what their business plan is for the year, what their innovation pipeline looks like, what are their big bets, and then executing that at the operator level. Here it's different. At 7-Eleven, we think about who is the customer, what do they want, when do they want it, going back to retail initiative, and then what are the specific items that we can provide them that would fit that need. And so let's take insight 1, for example, elevating the guest experience to improve conversion and satisfaction. We know that to be true. And so how we do that is to really simplify, optimize the flow and adjacency of the market. And so we're really thinking about the layout of the micro market. When was the last time that we changed the layout of the micro market itself? How do we redesign the fixture to make sure that the equipment is shoppable and that it's maximizing the customer pattern, the traffic inside the micro market? How do we drive into incremental growth through display activity and shippers and things that we can move in and out of the market quickly? And that's a way that we can drive an elevated experience inside of a store and convert people into purchasing. So one of the things that we look at closely is conversion rate, for example. If we've got 1,000 employees, how many of those employees are actually buying at the micro market or vending machine? And then how do we grow that using these types of tactics? There's several tactics on this screen. I won't go into all of them, but I want you guys to think about conceptually, how do I execute an insight-driven strategy versus a product strategy? So let's take a look at what we call our strike zone. And so imagine yourself inside of a micro market today. And in each of those, each of the micro markets, you see a section. The way that the human eye is trained to view the sections is top down, left to right, almost like you're reading a book. And so the way that 7-Eleven believes develops high performance inside the micro market is through execution of what we call a strike zone. It's in the middle of the screen here. You can see what that looks like here. And what we do is develop schematics for each of the sections inside of the micro market with the customer point of view, the customer eye in mind. And you can see what that is here. So we basically have the highest penetrating, highest traffic building items inside the strike zone. We put transaction builders or margin enhancers on top of the strike zone. And again, it's the way that the human eye is trained. And then we add incitement creators or incremental sales drivers positioned throughout the sets. And you can see that these are innovative new items. That's the way you drive incremental sales, by putting them inside of the strike zone. And then the items that are more destination products, tried and true products, things that may have a lower margin or higher velocity, we put them towards the bottom of the screen because we know that customers who are going to go to the market, they're coming there for a specific purpose. And so you can see transaction builders there. So that's how we lay out the strike zone. We actually do this not just for beverages, but we do this for snacks, and we do this for food. And so our positioning in terms of schematics is pretty robust, and that's how we execute the strike zone. That's another thing that you can do right now as you're going back to your business. Think about implementing something that will enhance sales through a strike zone. The other thing that we do is focus on core items. Core items are tried and true staple items that have been in the market for at least a year. They're not items that are big bets from our suppliers. These are your top sellers, your highest velocity items. Those are items that you're turning every month inside of your warehouses. Would you believe that 10% of core items represents 86% of our micro market sales? That's it. That means that 90% of items that are in your warehouse right now account for the rest of that pie. It's not a lot. So, and I'm speaking to the operators here, we know that inventory management and warehouse turn is critical in a lower margin operations. And so really maximizing the efficiency of your core items is critical. Again, it represents 10% of the items represent almost 87% of your sales. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, how do I do this? I don't have this now. The decision criteria is pretty simple. They're top sellers, they're functional items, they're maybe you have a private brand line. Those are items that you want to keep as core items inside of your schematics. Your suppliers will try to influence this pretty hard. Just know that anything that has not been in the market for at least a year does not qualify at 7-Eleven for a core item. And then lastly, driving fresh sales profitably is really important. So the whole industry is changing from vending to micro market. We know that to be true, and a part of that is executing fresh. And how do you execute fresh is kind of the question that that lends itself, and that's through an innovative pipeline of product that comes into the market. Menu fatigue is a real thing, right? Nobody likes to eat the same sandwich 7 days a week or the same salad 7 days a week, and so people get tired. And so our challenge as operators is to execute a robust, steady pipeline of product that continuously funnels into the market. And so at 7-Eleven, we introduce roughly 4 fresh food items a week into the market. And that's one of the distinct advantages of 7-Eleven, is because we have a pretty robust pipeline of product. Our traditional stores get about 50 items per week that's recommended to them. Our current operators don't have to carry these many products, but it's really important, as you guys are thinking about this, is how do I introduce new items into my markets regularly? You can see that our fresh food sales are approximately 30%, 36%. And in this is a little dated information, but I'd say about 6 months, we introduced about 133 new items into the market. So that's one side of it. One part of selling fresh food profitably is combating menu fatigue. The second part of this is executing a macro order, the actual ordering of product. And you can see here's how we do that. It's through what we call ABC sellers. You know, it sounds like exactly what it is. Our A sellers are top items. Our B and C sellers are slow movers. And essentially what we do is we work with our operators to make sure that our macro order on A sellers are growing and the B and C sellers are either maintained or deleted. And so we have a good understanding of what those A, B, and C sellers are at all times, and that we're growing our macro order. Essentially, we want to reduce our waste, expand on top sellers to increase profitability. And then a couple things on how to really drive tactically drive profit into your markets. Closing the gaps on top sellers is really important that you do that through take rates. So if you got a top seller that's selling in 2 or 3 markets, think about moving that into core, and then how do you really penetrate that particular item into all markets? We do that through what we call take rate execution. Purging slow and dead items through your inventory, really important. Verification of pricing, and that's specific to 7-Eleven. I know many of us don't price our items inside the vending machines or micro markets. But executing something like that, really important, making sure we're protecting our profitability. And then we believe at 7-Eleven that it's not really about the 7-Eleven market, but really about the product inside the market. And all of us can execute that, whether you're with 7-Eleven or someone else. How do you really highlight product inside of the markets? That's really important to us as well. And then lastly, just a couple conclusions. And executing profitably, turning insights into action is one. Focusing on core items, as I mentioned, 86% of your sales comes from the top 10 items. Maximizing your strike zone. If you haven't thought about that, some great examples of what that would look like inside of your markets now through traffic driving products, margin enhancing products. And then lastly, selling fresh food profitably, and that's through 2 ways. Making sure you have a steady pipeline of product, and then growing your macro orders through fresh food. My email is at the bottom of this presentation. Would love for you guys to reach out to me or come by the booth 1647 if you'd like to learn more information or just get to know us a little bit more. We'd love to have you. And with that, I thank you guys.